Welcome to Knife Chats. If you like this video, please take a moment to leave a comment. Thank you.
This video is going to be on the traditional pattern knife known as the Melon Tester. Now, I was introduced to the Melon Tester way back in the 1970s when I was in high school, and a kid in high school pulled this out of his pocket and said, "You mess with me, you mess with my little friend here." And he opened up the blade. And it was very similar to this knife, except it was just, the blade was actually a little skinnier and was not serrated. But it did have a white handle, that's what I remember. And it referred to it as a stiletto. And it's a really big, long, skinny knife, like stilettos are. And this one, if you see here, it's about 5 3/4 inches long. And I recall his being about that long closed. And you got a blade on there that is right over 4.5 inches long for poking. But I remember asking him, does that thing have a lock on it? And he said no. And it's like, well, you don't want to go around poking someone with a non-locking blade. And then I pulled out this knife, which is obviously a lot smaller, and I said, this is a stiletto. This blade locks. I can actually stab you with this. You try stabbing me with this and it's going to fold up on you. I think I won the argument on that. So let's take a look at what the real Melon Tester is and what it's actually for. So as I already said, it's a long skinny knife with a long skinny blade. And typically the blade ends in a spear point or a drop point, something like that, because you actually are going to be poking things with it. You're just not going to be fighting with it. Now this particular one is serrated. They're not always serrated. They're, as a matter of fact, it seems like more often they're fine edge. This one is made by Cutmaster. It is made in China, however. You see it's an advertising knife for Dole. And it's white Delrin handles on it. Really a nice knife, brass liners and everything else. It's a quality built knife. I believe it's 420 steel, which is fine because what you're doing with it is stuff you'd be doing in a kitchen, because really what you're doing is cutting a watermelon or a cantaloupe or something like that, some kind of melon. And this is used to cut through the rind of the melon, and then you're going to cut out a piece of it and then test it to see if it's any good. And it would be something that you'd be using when testing a large group of melons for like a produce selection. You're checking one or two of them in the large group to make sure that they're good. And that's what the Melon Testers are for. That's why the design came out. Now, like I said, it's just a long skinny knife with a long skinny blade, and that blade may or may not be serrated, but that's really what your Melon Tester is. Of course, there are variations, and let's take a look at a couple variations we have here. This one here is by Rough Rider, and as you can tell, it has two blades. Knife overall length is right at 5 inches, so you see it's also a little bit shorter than this Cutmaster. And the main blade you have on it is a 4-inch spear blade. And then it has a secondary blade, which, as you can see, is more of a serrated type blade. So you have the fine edge and a serrated blade. The serrated blade is a little shorter because basically all that is for cutting through the rind. You still see that it has a very good point going on here, because you are going to want to poke a hole through the rind and then start cutting or sawing with the blade. And then once you've got it all opened up, you can use your skinny blade here for cutting up the melon, and then also use it for poking into the melon and eating a piece of the melon. Now, obviously, not everyone wants to go around eating a piece of melon off of a knife blade. So here's another example of a Melon Tester. This one is a little bit shorter again. This one is 4 3/4 inches long, so they're all getting a little bit shorter. Again, though, it just has a fine edge, which means you're just going to cut through the rind of the melon and then cut up the melon with the blade. But then on the other end here, you have a little two-tine fork. So once you've got it all cut up, you can actually just poke the piece of melon that you're going to test with the fork and then eat it off of the fork that way. This one is just a no-name knife out of China. Not the best of quality, as you can tell from when I'm opening it. You heard it hit. It actually hits the blade when I'm pulling out the fork. So normally when I'm doing that, I just go ahead and open up the blade first to pull out the fork. So yeah, you can get these online, and like I said, they're about $4 or $5. But there you go. That's what your melon testers are. They're just long, skinny knives. But you should not confuse a melon tester for a stiletto. While it is a long, skinny knife with a long, skinny blade, it is not a fighting knife. This is not something that you're going to want to go into a fight with, because this blade does not lock, and you do not want to fight with a non-locking blade. So if you're looking for something for personal protection, then you need to consider something like a stiletto. So melon tester, not a stiletto, and then stiletto. And actually, yeah, you could still use this as a melon tester, but really, try and get that past the police and convince them that I was just going to be testing melons probably won't work. So, melon tester, not a stiletto. Stiletto could be a melon tester if you are going to be starring in a Rocky movie or something like that. There you go. Now we all know the difference between a melon tester and a stiletto.
Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Knife Chats, and if you did, please like and share it with your friends. Comments are always welcome. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode of Knife Chats is up online. Thanks again. Hope to see you soon.